Well, I just had a quick shower at Mohawk because I plan on crashing when I get home. You know, I used to, long before there was a stable, I used to have horses for a gentleman in London, Daryl. Nice man. And he owns one horse with us, and it's a big chunk of Century Legion. You know, I was so happy for him when the horse was training down. He looked good, and looked like he was going to be a nice horse. Now, I'll use that lightly in the past tense. So here's my take on Century Legion. Before, when you would go a mile with Century Legion, if you tapped him on the tail, he would almost snap the harness going forward, right? You would just bounce forward. And an abundance of speed. That was his problem, remember? We had trouble with him making a break at the gate and getting too hot. Remember he run away on James almost? He was just too hot. My job tonight was to keep him trotting and try and figure out, if it didn't go the way we wanted, figure out what was wrong with Century Legion. Now, I can tell you, Harry called me the other day. I told you guys this. He was off a little bit left front, and he's always been a little bit right hind. I think it's probably something that will bother him a little bit. Maybe that right hind ankle. The vet, he always carried a little heat up high above the joint, like above the sesamoid area. But it always flexed okay, and it never really bothered him to jog or training down that much. But as we got at top speed, it did. Now, we've x-rayed him and ultrasound. There's nothing really there. There's something there. He tells you it's there. But I think between that right hind, now it has caused a little bit of discomfort left front. Harry said a splint that we had cryoed on that left front way back when has now reactivated a little bit. Knowing the horse, I would say he's been loading weight on that left front. He's getting a little sore on it. So we have two issues. One, we have to fix the discomfort in the left front. You have to try and work to mitigate the issues in his right hind. Now, these may sound major to you. They're not. This is colt stuff 101. We have 5 or 6 horses going through, quite frankly, maybe a little worse than what Century Legion's going through. Here's the one thing with Century Legion. As I said at the start, he always had that bull in a china shop feel to him. You would move him over and he'd bolt, right? I didn't see that tonight. I warmed him up. I went to put him in gear halfway down the lane because that's where he's prone to making a break. So I went to put him in a bad spot warming up. Tapped him on the tail and he kind of jumped forward a bit. He finished up okay, but it's not him. I actually thought he was tied up a little bit. I'm feeling his back. It doesn't feel tied up. He doesn't feel tight over his back. He just feels flat as a pancake. Now, I've driven lots of horses like this. There could be a million things. Where would I start? Obviously, we're scoping him right now. I don't know if we're going to find a lot there because he didn't fizzle out. He just had no pop. Usually when they have mucus like that, they'll feel good and then they'll immediately just burn right out. You might have thought he did that, but he never did get up into top gear. I gave him an opportunity. I knew he could trot the turn good. So I won, and the 2 horses were on fumes in front of me. I just thought if I could move him over, and even if he advanced, if I just kept his momentum going, looking around, I'm getting a big chunk. But instead, he was doing all he could. As we're going up to the gate, I'm watching him, and I could see him. It just felt like he was maybe thinking about trying to get out. But those trotters, when you get them up into racing speed, they either have to be ignorant, bad, or pretty sore to roll off. What happened last week, I can tell you exactly what happened. I brought him in so that I was going racing speed as we went to come up into position, and then I kind of coddled him coming out of there. He was fine. He was fine at that point. I wasn't going to lose him. James last week had him up near the gate and then asked him to advance, or he tried to advance with the gate, and that's where he made the break. So I'm left wondering, take a step back and look at the big picture. What's going on with the horse? First thing I do, scope him. We're going to do that. Draw his blood. We're going to do that. Let's assume he comes back okay on both, which is highly unlikely, but possible. I would definitely marquee him. Not Baycocks. I would marquee him. He just felt swimmy behind, that if you watch the video, watch him in the last turn when I move him over, he kind of just looks like he has rubber boots on behind. He lost a shoe going into the first turn, but that didn't matter. I'll tell you what he did. I always tell you guys, I got a lot of respect for horses that do their work the best they could. He could have looked for a way out. He did not. He could have just run. He did not. Not only did he not look for a way out, but he trotted as hard as he could. I can assure you, I don't know what was going on with him tonight, and we will get to the bottom of it. But everything he could possibly do tonight, he did. So the horse got my respect. He's not a pig. He's not a slob. He's not lazy. He's not sour. He's not lame. He has some colt issues we have to work on. And he's trying. After the race, he's drinking water. He's playing. He's a worker. That's what he is, a worker. I got nothing bad to say about that colt tonight. Century Legion, not a bad thing to say about him. I see a lot of things we can work on, and I'll be quite frank. I'll tell you exactly what I talked to Harry about. I'd give him 2-3 weeks off. Put some weight on him. Try to figure out what's going on with the left front. The right hind we've worked on. He can go over to Melissa's, but I don't want to spend a pile of money trying to reinvent the wheel. The fact that he hasn't got any worse or better in his right hind leads me to believe it's probably a stifle. That's what I thought it was the first time I sat behind him, and the vet said, "No, I don't think it is." I would just quietly open up a bottle of cedar oil, blister his knees, hocks, and stifles, work on that left splint. If you want to cryo it. If it's still live, go ahead and cryo it. Let him relax for the next 2 weeks, maybe even give him a little grass. I don't think the horse's year is done, but he does need a little help. He's not an aged racehorse. You're not going to go in and inject him and he's going to be perfect all of a sudden. This is a 2-year-old trotter. I would just pour the cedar oil to him, turn him out in the grass, pour the cedar oil to him. In about 5 days, he'll be fine. Kick him out in the grass. Cryo that splint if it needs cryoed. Let him feel good again. And this is all assuming the scope and the blood work comes back fine, which I think it might. I might be wrong. But I'm not going to say a negative word about the colt tonight, because all I saw is a horse that worked his ass off. A horse that did everything he could do to do everything he could do in the race. He was a little tentative at the start, but once we get in the mile, he did everything perfectly. Not a thing wrong. You can't blame him for not being a better horse tonight. I don't know where fifth gear was. I don't know where the Century Legion was. It was fiery and hot and aggressive before. I don't know where that horse went to. But we'll find him. Don't worry about that. So I was obviously upset that we were fifth, but very impressed with a horse that was very focused on his work. And that's all I have to say about Century Legion tonight. So I will let everybody go. I know I'm going to get an email from Daryl. I know I'm going to get an email from Patricia and a bunch of other people saying what was wrong with the colt, what happened to him, he looked off. Now you know everything I know right now, this second, about Century Legion. So I can update everybody when the scope and the I'll probably touch on it at some point in the video, how his scope was and how his blood work was. But what I would like to do is give the horse just a couple of weeks to simmer down. He just needs to collect himself. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from tonight. So with that, I'll let you go. Have a wonderful rest of your night. I got to get some gas and head to Guelph. Take care.